You've helped a lot of people because of what you've gone through. And I like to think that I have too.
Yes.
With this podcast. Obviously. God, I feel awkward now.
Obviously, girlfriend.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where imperfect people have imperfect conversations. My name is Christina, and last week's episode, let's just talk about last week's episode. It was really rough. I still feel kind of self-conscious about it, even though I've gone back and listened to it a couple times. And it's not as bad as I thought, but it's still pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And I want to be able to tell you that they're not going to be like that moving forward, but I don't know. Maybe they will. I think what I need right now, as far as the podcast goes, is just to rid myself of every expectation that I've developed until now and kind of just go with the flow. So today I just hit record. We'll see what happens. I do have some notes of topics I want to talk about today. I realized that over the years since I started this podcast, I've kind of gotten away from the point, which is just to talk about my mental health and have no holds barred conversations about what's going on with me. And I want to get excited about recording again. Lately, it's just been so much pressure, and that's not good. So I'm just going to show up and talk about whatever I want, and hopefully y'all will be along for the ride, and it'll be great. So right now, I am actually recording in my apartment, not at my parents' house, and it's really nice. So this week, my partner officially moved in with me. He has been living here for months already, but we kind of just made it official, and it's fucking amazing. He makes me extremely happy. We're very good for each other, but I live in a studio apartment under 500 square feet with 2 cats, and so there's not a lot of time where I get to have to myself to make audio journals, let alone this podcast. And so last night, I dropped him off at his parents' house. His parents live in the same town that my parents live in, which is pretty wild. So I dropped him off, and then my sister-in-law, Alyssa, shout out to Alyssa, it was her birthday yesterday, or rather her birthday celebration with our family. And so I went over there and hung out with the whole family. And then my sister Caroline, who y'all should know by now, she's been on the podcast several times, she was going to another party for her group of friends, which I have a lot of siblings and I see my family a lot, but at the same time, it's very interesting to me whenever I get to see someone in my family in the wild, if you will. Like, Caroline has her group of friends and I have no idea what she does with her people. I don't know what she's like when she's not with our family. So it was really fun for me to see her in that environment. And Alyssa came, my other sister Bonnie came. And then after that, Alyssa had never been to a club before, or rather there was this club in the area that is pretty well known and she had never been. And so Caroline and I took her out. I was the DD. I'm always offering my services as DD to everyone in my family, but no one has ever taken me up on it until now. So I was extremely happy to be able to provide that service last night. It was my first time going to a club since probably before COVID. And I've been sober from alcohol for a few years now. It'll be 3 years in May, which is insane. So even before COVID, I never really went out. And so last night we closed down the club. We showed up. Alyssa and Caroline had shots. I had a sugar-free Red Bull, and we got tater tots. We danced a little bit. It was mostly them dancing and me taking embarrassing videos of them. And then we shut it down. We went to 7-Eleven and got a bunch of snacks. Then we went home, and I didn't get to bed till like 4 last night. And I thought that it would hit me harder, but I actually feel pretty good right now. Last week's episode, I was really anxious and kind of at a low point, but I'm happy to say that right now I feel pretty good. I'm in my apartment, like I said, surrounded by, I guess you could say I've formed a nest for myself. I'm in my bed. I have pillows all around me. I have my recording equipment. I have my external hard drive. I have my journals because I'm going to be reading y'all a journal entry later. And it kind of reminds me of when I first started the podcast back in 2018. I was living in Washington, D.C. with my ex, but we still lived together even though we'd broken up. And so that was kind of when my eating disorder and my alcohol issues all came to a head and started hitting me full force. And so what I would do is I would spend a lot of time in our basement, and I would drink all night and just dance by myself or just make sad writings. And once the podcast started, of course, I would record down there. So if you go back and listen to episode 1, I describe my environment as basically this little fortress that I had built for myself. I would always go down there and light candles and put on blankets and stuff because it was cold, and my cat would come down and cuddle with me, and it was really cozy. So I feel like right now I'm really getting down to my roots. Like I said, I'm kind of going to go with the flow today, but I did have a few things that I wanted to touch on. I'm trying to talk about stuff that I'm passionate about. So like during the week, if I have an idea for something I want to talk about on the podcast, I'll write it down in a note. And so one of the things that I really want to do, again, is involve listeners more. I know that I have guests and stuff, and that's really great, but I've kind of lost track of the Pickles and Vodka community. I feel like in the early days, I was a lot more active on Instagram and Facebook and all that shit. And the whole purpose of the podcast, when no one knew about it, was just to give platforms to people, just regular people with mental health issues who wanted a space to be vulnerable. And so it's amazing that as the podcast has grown, I've had a lot of professionals on the show to talk about what they know, but I kind of want to get back to my roots, like I said, and just get back to the idea that everyone has a story. You don't have to be in recovery to tell it. You don't need to be a work in progress, because sometimes you just need to tell someone. Like the act of telling someone can sometimes be enough, or at least if not enough, it can be a start. And so, like I said in the last episode, I'm probably not going to get back to regular interviews with guests for a few more weeks because I'm in school and it's taking up a lot of my time, and I just don't want the stress. And I'm a worst podcast host when I'm stressed. And so it'll just be me for a few more weeks. Maybe I'll have random appearances from past guests. In other words, people in my family. I love my family. Let me just say that. I know that there's a lot of trauma in my past and none of us are perfect, but I still think it's amazing that we all enjoy each other's company as much as we do. So last night, for instance, Alyssa, whose birthday we were celebrating, she is married to my youngest brother, David. I have 3 brothers. David is the youngest. And we call him drama-free David because out of all of us, he is the one who has done the traditional college path, the traditional career path. He went to college right out of high school, got a job right out of college, and he's just a chill dude in general. But every time someone calls him drama-free David, I always say, like, don't call him that. You're going to jinx it. You're setting him up for a midlife crisis or some shit. But anyway, David has been a listener of the podcast since the very beginning, and I don't thank him enough for that. And Alyssa is his wife. And so she has been part of the family for, I want to say 2 years, maybe 3. 3 years is when they started dating. And they got married last August, right after I moved here from Seattle, which is a really embarrassing story, which I guess I've just roped myself into telling. So I had just moved from Seattle. I didn't have a car yet. My two youngest sisters, Bonnie and Elizabeth, we were all gonna drive to the wedding together. So that morning we had all gotten ready, and I don't even remember the chain of events, but basically we were a little late leaving. We got lost. We couldn't find the venue in time, and we missed David's fucking wedding. We missed it. And the worst thing is that we would have been the only siblings there because, okay, so there's 7 of us, right? So Caroline at the time was in flight attendant school in Florida. Andrew, my oldest brother, whom I've also had on the podcast, he and his wife, Abby, were in Guam. And then I have a third brother that I haven't really talked about on the podcast. He has a lot of mental health issues, and he's kind of estranged from the family, so he wasn't there either. So out of all 6 of David's siblings, not one of us showed up to the moment where he said I do. And that is something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I feel so terrible about it, and I can't even imagine what Alyssa was feeling. And so we've talked about it since, and we've made up and everything's fine, but I really have harbored a lot of guilt from that. And so last night was really beautiful because David and Alyssa hosted like a game night at their apartment, and everyone showed up. Our parents, all of the siblings in the area. Andrew and his wife Abby are in the States for a few more weeks for his training, and they were able to come. Bonnie got off from beauty school early to come. It was just so beautiful, and we had such a good time. And I just fucking love my family. They're such a fun group of people, a fun, fucked up group of people. But I really consider myself fortunate to have that because not a lot of people do. My parents, for all their flaws, they're still married. I just love them so much, and they have been so supportive of me throughout my recovery journey. Ever since I moved to Seattle, it's been really rough for me, and moving back here to Virginia has been the best decision that I've made in a long time. Things are going really well. Last night, actually, I had a really great moment in my bulimia recovery last night. So after we left the club, we went to 7-Eleven and got a bunch of snacks, and then we were eating, and then David and Alyssa left, and it was just me and Caroline. And I went upstairs to wash my face and stuff, and I had this moment where I really, really, really wanted to purge. And instead of giving into that urge, I went downstairs and I said, "Hey, Caroline, do you think you could come up and wash your face with me? And because I feel like purging." And she looked me in the eye and she was like, "Christina, I am so proud of you. Like, that is huge. Thank you so much for asking." And I never would have been able to do that in the past. I probably would have just put on some bath water and did my thing and then went downstairs and acted like nothing was wrong. But Caroline always knows. Of all my siblings, I think Caroline is most in tune with my struggles because she's also had an eating disorder. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast. In fact, today I'll be recording this solo part right now, but then later on in the episode, I'm going to be reading some listener comments, and Caroline and my mom are both going to be joining me to talk about this week's poll and what we think about the answers that y'all submitted. So I cannot wait for that. We're going to be going to Florida next week for a wedding. So I'm going to be hanging out with my mom and Caroline a lot. It's going to be really fun. And we're kicking it off by having them on the podcast. So hang in tight if you want to listen to that. God, I'm always afraid that I'll run out of stuff to talk about on these, but it's been like 15 minutes and I feel like I haven't touched on anything I wanted to talk about. So one thing that I wanted to talk about is people in the community who are doing mental health advocacy work who I really admire, because it's a really hard field. And I really have a lot of respect for people who are vulnerable when they talk about mental health, like not just helping other people, but being vulnerable about their own struggles. And I wanted to give some recommendations / shout outs just to give recognition to some people. So this week I have been listening to Feelin Weird, which is a podcast by my friend Kai Plant. I had them on my podcast last year. And they have been doing the mental health podcast thing longer than I have. They were kind of one of my role models when I was starting out. And they just started this new thing called the Weirdo Call-In Show, where they do an episode with a whole entire cast of characters, but every character is voiced by Kai. And it's so funny and so brilliant and so fucking weird. I love it so much. Like, they called in as this intergalactic character. They called in as their younger self, as their future self. They have like fake ads and stuff, and they have this whole dialogue with producer Kai. It's so good. If you want a laugh and if you just want to feel like there's some good in the world, go listen to that. The Weirdo Call-In Show by Feelin Weird. It's so good. I admire Kai a lot as a podcaster and an artist and a human being. When I did my episode with them, I think I was a little nervous because it was kind of like meeting a celebrity for me. And you can definitely tell in the episode. So I don't know, Kai, if you're listening, let's talk sometime. I would love to have you back on. Another podcast that I've been listening to the last few weeks is a podcast called Dopey. It's been around for like 6 years now. And it was started by these two dudes, Dave and Chris. And the whole point was just to talk about drugs and dumb shit, not from a place of recovery, but just to be able to talk about it. Because a lot of people feel like you can't talk about it unless you're on the other side, but that's obviously not the case. So they just tell debaucherous stories. Debaucherous? I don't know if that's a word. They tell stories of debauchery. And then, of course, they do get more recovery centered as they go. But the reason that this podcast has been hitting me so hard is because Chris, one of the hosts, actually overdosed and died back in 2018. And I know it's coming. Like, I started from episode 1. I'm on episode like 44 now, I think. And the episode where they talk about his death is episode 143. So I'm slowly catching up, and I'm just dreading his death. Like, I know it's happening, but I know it's still gonna ruin me. It's just, oh God, it's such a great podcast. Not only is it entertaining as fuck, but also I just love that the chemistry that Dave and Chris have, and they inspire me to be more loose with my own podcast, because at least in the beginning episodes, Dave is really self-conscious about the editing and the content and stuff. And I definitely recognize a lot of that in my own podcast. I worry so much about what people think, and like, is it structured enough? Is it unstructured enough? It's just exhausting. And so listening to Dopey has really made me feel better about podcasting and about people in general. I would highly recommend it if you're a drug addict. They like to say afflicted. If you're afflicted, or if you know someone who is, it's a great podcast to listen to. Not family friendly in the slightest. But it's great. Another podcast, last one, I promise. I was thinking about celebrities who are mental health advocates. I want to do a whole episode about this eventually, because there's a lot out there. But one of my favorites is Chris Gethard. It's funny because he spells his name Chris Gethard, and if you Google his name, the first result is a video of him saying, like, please don't pronounce my name Gethard. Please don't. But he is an actor and a comedian, and he has a podcast called Beautiful Anonymous, where he just talks to strangers for an hour about whatever they want. And some of them are humorous. Some of them are really intense. Like, he interviewed this woman who was in an abusive relationship and she wanted to get out. And then in the middle of their conversation, her husband came home and actually like started talking to them. And I was on the edge of my seat. So there's a lot of moments like that. But what I love about it is that Chris is very honest about his own mental health journey. He has a history of depression and suicidal ideation. And he talks about checking himself into the psych ward on multiple occasions. And it's just a breath of fresh air to hear a celebrity of his stature like talking about that in such an open way. It's not preachy at all. It's entertaining, sure, but it's also very heartwarming. And yeah, I would recommend it. So I guess I didn't mean for this to be like a podcast recommendation hour, but here we are. So if you want some new podcasts to check out, Kai Plant, Feelin Weird, just go to Feelin Weird on Spotify or wherever, and they have 2 episodes where they do this weirdo call-in thing, and it's amazing. And then Dopey is the other podcast. I would recommend going back to the beginning and listening like I did, like I'm doing. And then Beautiful Anonymous with Chris Gethard is also amazing. With that said, I'm going to move into the next segment of this episode, in which I read a journal entry from the past. I haven't been doing it lately because I've been having kind of an identity crisis as far as the podcast goes. But I'm going to go back. This one is really short, so it won't take up too much of your time. I wanted to read it because I just got into a new relationship with my partner, and he's amazing, and we're very happy. And I never thought I could have this. I never thought it would be possible for me to have a healthy relationship, to have an equal relationship where it's all good. It all feels easy. And I'm not used to that. So I picked up my journal today. This entry that I'm about to read, I wrote on November 15th, 2011. So 11 years ago. And I'll just read it and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so Tuesday, 15th November, 2011. Sometimes I let fear come into my soul and terrorize it with claws of ice. There's nothing worse because it makes me sick with dread and doubt and all manner of things that aren't necessarily real, but at the same time frightfully so. I am afraid that I love my partner more than he loves me. I'm afraid that I am too much of a nutcase and will scare him off in the end. I'm afraid that I will be consumed with debt for the rest of my life. I'm afraid of gaining 10 extra pounds. I'm afraid, I am afraid, I am afraid. I am afraid of being petty. And that's it. That's the entry. It's really short. So there's a few things I want to talk about. Firstly, the relationship that I was in at the time, we met when I was 18. It was my first boyfriend ever. I met him at this super conservative Christian school, and like he listened to the White Stripes, and so I thought he was the coolest. And so he's the only ex of mine that I do not talk to this day. I keep in touch with most everyone else. Well, no, that's a lie. There's 2 others. But he's like the only serious long-term relationship that I had that I don't talk to anymore. Because it didn't end well. We were immature. It's fine now. But I spent so many hours just agonizing over his feelings for me. I felt like I loved him more than he loved me. I felt like I couldn't tell him things about myself because the word I used in the entry was nutcase. I was afraid of being labeled a nutcase. And I was also trying to be Christian at the time, and there was a lot of guilt because I was worried that I was giving more energy into my relationship with him than my relationship with God. Just basically lots of guilt and shame at all times. And it makes me really sad because I truly did think that I had to change myself if I was going to find love. I thought that in order to deserve love and a happy relationship, I needed to push down the parts of myself that were ugly and difficult and real. And that just makes me sad because I know now that I deserve so much more and that so much more is possible. I think at the very end, I talk a little bit about debt. I talk about body image and how afraid I am. I truly did feel paralyzed by fear in that moment. And I would like to say that I've gotten a lot better, but in some cases I haven't. I'm still paralyzed with anxiety. Just go and listen to last week's episode. It's really messy because I was anxious as fuck and I did not know what to do about it. But the thing is, I did do something about it, which was to make that episode, and I feel better now. And so I think that's a sign of progress that I'm able to talk about it now and realize that the moment will pass if I let it. and that people want to help me. People want to help relieve my anxiety. And people have anxieties of their own. And maybe I'm not the only person in the world who's struggling with this. And maybe if I expand my circle and ask people about themselves, I'll find that I'm not alone and that anxiety doesn't need to rule our lives. I also thought it was interesting that the last thing I wrote was, I'm afraid of being petty. And I think that goes to show how little I thought of my struggles. I thought that my struggles were petty. I thought that they weren't of importance and that, like I said, I needed to shut them out and push them down because they're petty and no one wants to talk about it. And the fact that I'm having those feelings at all is just stupid and I'm stupid and blah, blah, blah. It's just, I mean, we were all 21s. I'm sure lots of people feel this way when they're reading their 11-year-old journals. But I guess the point I wanted to make is that it's a relief to see that I have always felt this way, like this isn't coming out of nowhere. And also it's a relief to see that I've changed. With that said, the next segment of the podcast today is going to be a little different. I posted this poll on Instagram in which I asked the question, if you could go back to the first time you did something, and something meaning a harmful behavior, like, binging and purging or cutting or drugs or whatever. If you could go back and stop yourself from doing something for the first time, would you do it? Why or why not? What would you say? And so I got a lot of interesting questions, so many, in fact, that on Tuesday, when I go over to my parents' house to get ready to leave on vacation, I'm going to read them with Caroline and my mom, who has also been on the podcast. And we're just going to talk about it because they both have histories with harmful coping mechanisms. And I'm really interested in hearing the perspective that they bring to the table. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to stop this right now and transition into that. And then I'll edit it Wednesday morning when we're on the plane, and hopefully Wednesday night this will be coming out. So thank you so much for waiting. Thank you for being my amazing listeners. I love you all very much, and I hope you're taking care of yourselves as always, because it's a rough time to be alive. I might not feel as anxious this week, but it's still hard to be alive in this world. So try to take it easy and enjoy this next part of the conversation. That is cute.
That has pockets.
That's a good Halloween outfit.
That is cute. Oh, Lord.
She's holding a, how would you even describe that?
Hot pink, classy and sleazy outfit. It's classy. Is it classy or is it sleazy? I don't know. It could be both. Wow,
you heard it here first.
Definitely sleazy.
So I am here in my parents' house now. I'm in my mom's room, and all around us is chaos. How would you... We're about to go to Florida tomorrow, and so all of our suitcases are just, like, all over the floor.
Yes, plus good giveaway stuff.
But yeah, we decided in the middle of packing to go through our donations.
So it's really crazy.
Because it's not crazy enough. But the reason I wanted you to be on here for this little segment is because we're talking about, by we I mean the Pickles and Vodka community.
Yes, which I love.
We have been talking on Instagram this week about our first time doing like a harmful behavior, like purging or cutting or whatever, taking, using. Anyway, if you could go back to the first time and stop yourself, would you do it? That's what we've been talking about.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
All right, there's a resounding...
hamster on a wheel.
There's a resounding yes from Ginger Lou.
Yes.
What do you mean by hamster on a wheel?
Once you start, it becomes a cycle until you get off that wheel.
Do you have a lot of regrets?
Yes, but I've learned from them.
Yeah. I don't know. I have such mixed thoughts because on one hand, it's like you can go back and stop a lot of pain, but also think of all the good that's come from our struggles.
That's a good point.
I mean, I feel like you've helped a lot of people because of what you've gone through. And I like to think that I have too.
Yes.
With this podcast, obviously. Obviously. God, I feel awkward now.
Obviously, girlfriend.
So, I'm going to read some of the responses that people gave me, and we can talk about it. But is there anything else you want to say about the subject first?
Well,
you're looking at the microphone like you're nervous.
You can't go backwards, but you can learn from what's in the rearview mirror.
See, I agree.
So.
I think regrets are pointless. And by that, I mean, I think you can look back on something and wish you hadn't done it, and you can learn from it. But if you spend a lot of time and energy regretting it, that's just wasted energy. Right. I've spent so much of my life just regretting things. Caroline is in the other room getting ready for a
evening out.
Hot date.
No, it's an evening out.
She is a person who is in social circles and actually goes out. She may be joining us soon, but they're so great. They just let me come in here and set up my microphone and bug them. I'm forcing them to do this.
In the middle of my room.
I know. I'm in the middle. The dog's over there sleeping.
Yeah, this is great.
There's like chips on
luggage everywhere, plastic bags.
Oh,
and
tell
products.
them while I pull up the messages. You should tell them what we just did.
Okay,
get a little closer.
We just had the best time. My husband, Christina's dad, just discovered a wealth of old pictures in an old laptop.
By old, you mean like 2000? Some of them are from 2000.
So what is it, 2022? 22 years ago. So, she's one of 7. So a lot of memories. And so we decided, I guess it was your idea.
It was Caroline's
idea to recreate one of these. And I dressed my children in the nerdiest outfits in the entire universe.
You know those memes of homeschoolers?
Oh, this is it.
We are the origin.
This is the original nerdy meme homeschoolers, and I'm just horrified to look at it. But
I'll post some of them on the Instagram.
Some of them, though, you are wearing the same type things, and now it's cool.
Well, yeah.
So I would argue the fact that some of these
when
things
you have pink hair and tattoos,
around.
You can wear stuff because you're sending out the message that you don't care if it's cool. But back then, all I cared about was being cool, and I couldn't.
Yes, and I regret that I decided what they would wear every day.
What did we say about regrets?
Oh, well, I laugh at it now that I would dress them in such a way.
Well,
but
so
anyway.
Obviously we're talking about like things like addiction and stuff. You can't exactly laugh at it, but also you can.
You should.
I think sometimes that's the only way that I am able to look at these things is just by laughing.
If it's in the rearview mirror. If it's right in front of the mirror, it's not laughable.
That's called reading the room.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Caroline decided we should recreate an old, like a throwback, totally a throwback. And it is so cute.
It's so cute.
Can you put that on your...
Oh, yeah. I'll put it everywhere.
Okay. It's so cute.
If you follow my main Instagram, at Christina Jumper, then I don't know why that got so awkward.
It's so cute. And okay, when Christina was born, we got her a stuffed animal that we named Bell Bunny. Yes. So Bell Bunny is in every picture and in her memory box now. So in this picture, Bell Bunny is in every picture, and so they actually are holding the stuffed animal called Bell Bunny.
It's so precious.
You have the thing with bees. Bucka, bucka, bucka.
I couldn't say...
And Bell Bunny.
I liked alliteration. I still do.
Anyway, but yeah, so
and now
cute.
my hair is the same color as Bell Bunny now.
Yes, it's so cute.
So yeah, I'll post that picture. But okay, so the question is, if you could go back to the first time you did a behavior, would you stop it? So we had like mixed reactions. So Cora Girl's response, I'm gonna mess up some of these names. 100%, because that one time turned into 15 years of hell.
Yes, that's what I say.
I mean, I've been bulimic for 15 years, and it is hell. Sometimes I think about what I would be like if I didn't, but that's, again, you can't really think about that.
That's true.
I mean, you were bulimic.
I was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we already did an episode where we talked about the long-term effects of eating disorders.
I love that I can relate to people now, and it's part of my present help. But if I could change it, I would like to help them in a different way. But I'm grateful, it's like beauty to ashes. Ashes to beauty. Ashes to beauty. It's stuff that was yucky but something beautiful can come from it.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, it's like you can't always choose what you've been given in life, but you might as well just make the best of it.
Right.
Even though it's hard to say that because I feel like I am the reason for many of my, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another user, I don't want to say these usernames. It's really hard to
Yeah,
talk.
don't. Maybe they know who they are.
They know, but I want to give them shout outs.
Yeah, go ahead, shout out.
This is from one of my former guests, 80. They say, self-harm, yes, purging, no.
I love how honest and transparent.
Some of these I went back and asked them to elaborate, and I can't find these answers now. I'm so bad at this, you guys.
Yeah, you should have them as guests.
Well, I have had a lot of them as guests. Okay. Oh, so Kai of Feelin Weird Pod commented and said, I don't think stopping younger me from responding in the best way they knew how would be helpful, but I would want them to know they're not alone with those feelings that overwhelm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think stopping younger me from responding in the best way they knew how would be helpful. That's a good point, because in the moment, when you're doing this for the first time, you're young. You don't know what the most helpful thing is. You're just acting. Like, it's a self-soothing.
Right. I wish I knew back then how awesome I was back then and am today.
Oh
because then you wouldn't self-harm. You are too valuable. You are too awesome to do that to. But,
I have so many mixed reactions. Because on one hand, like, looking back at those old pictures today, I did feel really bad for my younger self. I thought, like, you didn't deserve any of the stuff you went through, but also I can't, I don't know, what would I have done if I hadn't reacted in that way?
I don't know, honey. You can't turn back the times. I wish, and of course I regret, like, could I have done something different to make you, like, should I have let you be cool like the rest of the kids?
What does that even mean?
I don't even know.
but then I might not have turned out the way I am now.
So I don't know.
Which is awesome.
You can drive yourself crazy with those.
I'm starting to feel like I'm driving everyone crazy with these polls.
It's good to probe into this and say, okay, you know.
I mean, all I want to do is start a conversation.
Yeah.
But the conversation is turning out to be kind of, was that your stomach?
No. Mm-mm.
Was it my stomach? Caroline! Get over here. We need your input.
Caroline has not outwardly manifested some of these things, but
let's ask Caroline.
Maybe.
Hello.
Caroline!
I'm here with my iced decaf coffee.
Shake your iced tea. What is it with you ruining my podcast with your beverages?
I just want people to know the life I'm living right now.
She got her power
she's
drinks.
graduated from the almond milk in a goblet.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever reach out about almond milk?
Sadly, no.
Guys, you need to get on top of this.
Almond milk? I haven't seen it in the
I love Almond
lately.
Breeze unsweetened original almond milk. It's so
Almond
delicious.
Breeze sponsor this podcast.
Yes.
So delicious.
Thank you
so
very much.
But now she has coffee in a big girl tumbler. But what have you heard of this conversation, Caroline?
I heard you guys talking about if you could change, like go back to the first time you participated in a certain behavior that, let's say, you're struggling with now, would you do it differently?
How do you feel on this topic?
Oh, man. I really think I like who I am, right? And so I'm more on the side of I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change a thing because I turned out okay and I'm happy with myself. And who knows how I would have turned out if I didn't struggle with that.
That's what I'm saying.
And I think it's almost like there's no use really thinking of all the avenues it could go in. But there is, because it's a really cool conversation.
It's a cool conversation.
But
moderation.
I also think that because you are doing things that damage your body.
Yeah. In some cases, yeah.
In some cases, for me it was totally. So that I may have, diminished years. I don't know. But only, I don't know anything like that. But I do think that, yes, I'm a better person for it, and I'm helping people with it. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't just detract from I damaged someone that was very valuable.
Which is you.
This precious body of mine.
Yeah.
So, and my mind, because these things affect your minds. So, yeah.
But maybe it helps you appreciate it more now.
Oh, I totally do.
which is awesome. Some people still have insecurities, and some people who have healed from, like a darker addiction or disorder. Some people appreciate what they have in the present more because of that than any quote unquote normal person would.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
But what is normal? Everyone has stuff they're regretting. Yeah. It's easy to compare to others.
Well, people who haven't struggled with, any kind of major mental health issues, disorders versus people who have. There's a distinction.
I feel like I'm missing some comments from people. I did not prepare this. I just threw the microphone on the floor and started recording.
Woohoo!
I'd love to hear some of these comments from you.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I just really love my listeners.
They're awesome.
I know.
They're so great.
I'm
trying to
realized how great their podcaster is.
Oh my god, stop. I don't know. I think going away from this conversation, one, I feel like I shouldn't start conversations I don't know how to. I feel like this is such a complicated issue to talk about.
It's okay if you don't have the answers, though.
But
I think
it would feel valuable
cool
to hear
just,
their answers, though.
No, our brother Andrew, he brought up a really cool point. He was telling me, I forgot what we were even discussing, but he said it was something that definitely had no answer, right? Like something that had to do with philosophy or religion or something that nobody knows for sure, and that's just what it is.
Animals, yeah.
So he said, I'm not asking you to get an answer. I'm asking to make us think. That's really important.
Yeah,
that's exactly
good.
What you're doing with this prompt.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Also, Andrew was on episode 28, if you all want to listen to him. And I'm trying to get him and his wife on an episode together before they leave the States.
I love that.
But thank you for letting me pick your brains. I know you guys are, I'm talking to my mom and Caroline now. I know that y'all are busy, and it means so much to me.
Oh, of course. We're sitting on the floor with you, and
we have had the best time. We literally just spent 3 hours looking at old pictures and then recreating one of them.
And I think the name of your podcast, Pickles, which who doesn't love pickles? I have this huge jar of pickles in our refrigerator right now. Pickles, but then vodka, which was something that tried to destroy your life. So, you know what? So, pickles and vodka. But how has life used that to make you a better person? So I just love that.
I love you. I'm going to remix that.
I didn't mean to say God. I know.
No, Mom, you can say whatever you want.
Okay.
I don't want to censor you.
No, please don't. But I also want to be like, God, Lord.
Oh my God.
It's who you are.
She's now swaying on the floor while Caroline looks at text from her hot.
I'm
Never mind.
so much more balanced now than
I've driven Caroline from the room.
No, I just gotta go because I'm short on time.
Okay,
Caroline, love you.
Careful.
I love you ladies so much.
Tell your friends hi.
I will.
All right, love you, and remember, we're leaving tomorrow.
We are gonna go to Florida.
Life is a hot mess right now.
Life is a hot mess, but that's
it.
just pickles and vodka.
Oh, we love it. We love it.
We love it. All right. I don't even know where to go from here.
Well, I would love for you to keep reading, all of the responses.
I don't know how many I actually got.
And I love that. That was such a great question. I mean, that's a great question.
Yeah, I think moving forward, I will try to be more organized with these polls, but thank you to anyone who responded. And
she'll read them all. She has read them.
I think I read all of them. I don't know. Instagram makes it hard because some of them are in my messages and some of them are in my comments and some of them are in my likes.
Yes.
Oh my God. Well, we're going to finish packing and then we're going to paint our nails.
We might do another episode from Florida or after you get back.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know. But,
Love you, listeners.
Yes, we love you.
So
and
much.
Keep having those conversations.
Yes, yes. And you are all awesome. And don't forget how beautiful and precious and valuable you are. Male, female, and anything in between or anything combined. You are so valuable. And don't you ever forget it.
I'm crying. Bye.
Seriously, bye.
Hello, friends. It's Christina again. As always, thank you for listening. If you want to support Pickles and Vodka, you can give us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Pickles and Vodka Podcast. If you could relate to anything at all we talked about today, or you just want to say hi, email me at picklesandvodkapodcast@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram at Pickles and Vodka Podcast. Stay safe and have a good week. Bye.